The rain had stopped, but the city of Seattle still shimmered with its memory. Streetlights reflected off the slick pavement, turning the world into a mosaic of gold and blue. It was the kind of night that made secrets feel heavier, and the air itself seemed to hold its breath. No one noticed the man who stepped out of the rideshare on Pine Street. No one, that is, except the doorman, who gave him a cursory glance before returning to his phone. The man wore a navy windbreaker, jeans, and a pair of battered sneakers. His hair was cropped close, his jaw set with quiet determination. He carried no luggage, just a slim leather folder tucked under one arm. He paused at the curb, looking up at the glass and steel tower of the Halcyon Hotel. The building was a monument to modern luxury, 20 stories of gleaming ambition, crowned with a rooftop garden that overlooked the city. He took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders, then walked through the revolving door. Inside, the lobby was a study in curated elegance. Marble floors, brushed gold fixtures, and a living wall of ferns behind the reception desk. Jazz played softly from hidden speakers. The air smelled faintly of bergamot and cedar. It was the kind of place where every detail was designed to impress, to reassure guests that they belonged if they looked the part. The man approached the front desk. Behind it stood a young woman, white, with a platinum bob and a blazer that looked 2 sizes too small. Her name tag read Chloe. She glanced up, her eyes flicking over him with practiced indifference. "Checking in?" she asked, her tone polite but distant. "Yes," he replied, voice calm. "Reservation under Carter. Elijah Carter." She tapped at her keyboard, her nails clicking like tiny hammers. "I don't see a reservation for that name. Are you sure it's for tonight?" He nodded. "Try Carter or Halcyon Holdings. It should be for a penthouse suite." Chloe's expression didn't change, but her posture stiffened. "That's reserved for corporate clients. I'm afraid I can't check you in without a confirmation number." Elijah's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice even. "It was booked internally. There should be a note attached." She shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir. Without a number, I can't help you." He let the silence stretch, watching her. She looked away first. Behind him, the lobby doors slid open. A white couple in designer coats breezed in, laughing. Chloe's colleague, a young black man named Marcus, greeted them with a wide smile. Within seconds, they had their keys and were on their way to the elevators. Elijah watched the exchange, then turned back to Chloe. "I'll wait," he said quietly. She pursed her lips, then pressed a button under the desk. "One moment, please." A few minutes later, a security guard appeared. He was tall, white, with a military buzz cut and a badge that read Henderson. He sized Elijah up, his hand resting near his belt. "Is there a problem here?" Henderson asked, his voice low and authoritative. "No problem," Elijah replied. "Just trying to check in." Henderson's eyes narrowed. "Do you have ID?" Elijah handed over his driver's license and a business card. Henderson barely glanced at them before returning them. "Wait here," he said, then disappeared into a back office. Elijah stood his ground, feeling the eyes of the lobby on him. He could hear whispers from the bar, the clink of glasses, the low hum of conversation. He was used to this being watched, being doubted. But tonight, the stakes felt different. A few minutes later, a woman emerged from the office. She was in her 50s, white, with silver hair pulled into a severe bun. Her name tag read, "Miss Whitaker, Night Manager." She approached with a clipboard held like a shield. "I understand there's some confusion," she said, her tone icy. "No confusion," Elijah replied. "I'm checking in. The penthouse suite under Halcyon Holdings, arranged under my name." She looked him up and down, her eyes lingering on his sneakers. "Do you have a corporate confirmation?" "I'm the CEO," Elijah said, his voice steady. "I arranged it myself." Miss Whitaker's lips thinned. "You look different than I expected." Elijah didn't blink. "What did you expect?" She hesitated. "We've had impersonation issues before. I hope you understand." "No," he said. "I don't." The tension in the air was palpable. Miss Whitaker gestured toward the lounge. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable waiting over there while we verify. I'll stand here, Elijah replied. Henderson returned, hovering nearby. Chloe busied herself with paperwork, avoiding his gaze. The couple from earlier glanced over, curiosity and discomfort mingling on their faces. Then, from behind the desk, a voice spoke up. You just stand your ground, honey. Let them show themselves. It was Gloria, the night housekeeper. She was in her 60s black, with salt and pepper hair tucked under a scarf. She moved with the quiet authority of someone who'd seen it all. As she passed Elijah, she gave him a look, a silent message of solidarity. Elijah almost smiled, but then Chloe said, Are you sure you're with corporate? He turned to her. I didn't say I was with corporate. I said I run it. Miss Whitaker's eyes narrowed. Why would a CEO book a suite anonymously? Elijah stepped forward, his voice low. To see how the staff treats strangers. Henderson shifted. Uncertain. Chloe scoffed. You expect us to believe you're conducting some kind of secret audit? Elijah looked at her, then through her. I expect you to treat people with respect, whether they own the building or not. No one spoke. At that moment, the lobby doors opened again. An older black woman entered, her posture regal despite the late hour. She wore a tailored coat and carried a cane with a silver handle. She paused when she saw Elijah, then approached. Mr. Carter, she said, her voice warm. Back in town? He nodded. Evening, Mrs. Green. She smiled. I remember when this place was just a hole in the ground. My grandson works here now. I came to see how he's settling in. She looked around the lobby, her gaze lingering on Chloe and Miss Whitaker. Seems I picked an interesting night. Miss Whitaker bristled. Ma'am, this is a private matter. Mrs. Green ignored her, turning to Elijah. You need anything, you let me know. He nodded, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Gloria returned, setting a glass of water on the counter beside Elijah. For you, she said quietly. You just keep standing. Elijah took the glass, not out of thirst, but principle. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. This is Carter, he said, eyes locked on Miss Whitaker. Activate the Seattle file. Now. He ended the call and placed the phone on the counter. I suggest you check again. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. Chloe glanced at Miss Whitaker, who disappeared into the back office. Henderson hovered, uncertain. The couple at the bar watched, their drinks forgotten. Elijah's mind drifted back to another night, years ago. He was 16, mopping floors in a hospital to help his mother make rent. She was a nurse, working double shifts, her hands raw from scrubbing. He remembered the jar on their fridge labeled, Own Something. Every paycheck, a few dollars went in. It was a promise of future he could barely imagine. At 24, he was folding sheets in a roadside motel, invisible to the guests who called him boy. At 26, he applied for a management job at a boutique hotel. The general manager, a white man with a country club tan, told him, You're impressive, but we're looking for someone who fits the brand. Elijah smiled, nodded, and walked out. He never forgot the sting of that moment. By 30, he was managing 3 properties. By 35, he was CEO of Halcyon Holdings, majority owner of the very hotel where he now stood, being treated like an intruder. He looked at his reflection in the glass diode, determined, unbowed. He remembered his mother's words, If they don't open the door, build your own. The silence in the lobby was broken by the arrival of 2 men. One was tall, white, with a tailored suit and a folder under his arm. The other was black, younger, with sharp eyes and a Bluetooth earpiece. They moved with purpose, scanning the room. Mr. Carter, the older man said, nodding. We're here. Chloe's eyes widened. Miss Whitaker reappeared, her face pale. Henderson straightened, suddenly unsure. The younger man, Jamal, stepped forward. We sent out the audit notice 2 weeks ago. All staff were briefed. Miss Whitaker stammered. 2 didn't know. That was the point, Elijah said. When you know you're being watched, you serve smiles. Tonight was real. The older man, Mr. Langley, turned to Miss Whitaker. Why was our CEO denied access to his own suite? She faltered. He didn't... Look, There was no confirmation. Jamal cut her off. He gave his name, showed ID, booked under corporate. You called security. Chloe's voice was small. We've had impersonators before. Elijah's voice was cold. You didn't ask for confirmation. You asked me to step aside. Mr. Langley placed a memo on the counter. You all had one job. Treat every guest like they matter, especially when you think they don't. The lobby was silent. Gloria watched from the sidelines, her eyes shining with quiet pride. Mrs. Green stood tall, her cane planted like a flag. Jamal pulled out a tablet and tapped a few buttons. The lobby screen behind the desk flickered to life, showing security footage of the night's events. Voices rang out Chloe's clipped tone, Henderson's suspicion, Miss Whitaker's cold professionalism. When the video ended, no one spoke. Then, from the corner, a young white man stepped forward. He wore an ill-fitting blazer and held his phone awkwardly. "Two recorded it too," he stammered. "I saw what was happening. I couldn't just let it go." Mr. Langley nodded. "Send it to my office." Miss Whitaker bristled. "You're going to use footage from an intern?" Elijah replied. "I'm going to use the truth. I don't care whose hands it comes from." Chloe's voice trembled. "Are we fired?" "Not yet," Jamal said. "But you will be held accountable." Miss Whitaker's face crumpled. "I've been here for 15 years. One mistake." Elijah cut in. "This wasn't a mistake. This was muscle memory. The first time someone stayed long enough to let the mask fall off." Gloria stepped forward, her voice steady. "I've worked here since the doors opened. I've seen people turned away for less. But tonight, I saw something different. I saw someone stand their ground without raising their voice. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud to wear this uniform." The room was silent, but it wasn't empty. Mr. Langley turned to Miss Whitaker. "Effective immediately. You're on administrative leave pending review. Henderson, you'll undergo retraining. Chloe, you're on probation. All staff will attend mandatory bias and sensitivity training." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Elijah raised a hand. "No one is being punished for asking questions. You're being held accountable for how you ask them and why." He turned to the intern. "You recorded what happened. Not for attention, but for truth. That's integrity. You'll work directly with my office on guest experience auditing, if you accept." The intern nodded, stunned. Mrs. Green smiled, her eyes shining. "About time," she murmured. Elijah looked around the room. "This isn't just about me. It's about every guest who doesn't fit the brochure. Your bias is your liability. Your assumptions are your risk. If you misjudge the wrong guest, you're not just failing them, you're failing this brand." He paused, letting the words settle. "If you need a name tag or a suit or a title to offer someone dignity, you're in the wrong line of work." He turned and walked away, his steps echoing in the marble lobby. Upstairs, the penthouse suite was immaculate, but Elijah barely noticed. He sat at the desk, opened his laptop, and began to type. "Dear Mom, tonight, I stood still. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I let them look at me and decide what I wasn't. Then I waited for them to realize how wrong they were. You told me once that silence can be sharp, can cut deeper than noise. Tonight, the silence didn't just cut them, it cut me, too. It's exhausting, carrying composure like armor, smiling so they don't call you bitter, calming your voice so they don't call you angry, standing your ground so they don't think you're weak. Walking into rooms knowing you have to prove you belong every single time, even when your name is on the deed. But I stayed, and that means something. I stayed so the next man in sneakers and a windbreaker won't have to explain himself. I stayed so they'd remember what happens when they let their assumptions speak louder than their hospitality. I won't quit, Mom. But tonight, I needed to tell someone the truth before I go back to being unbreakable." He closed the laptop without saving. The words weren't for anyone else. They were for him. The next morning, the staff gathered in the conference room. Elijah stood at the front, his presence commanding but calm. "You all know who I am now," he began. "But last night, most of you didn't. And the way I was treated proved that it didn't matter." He let the silence stretch. This wasn't about catching anyone off guard. It was about seeing the truth version of this hotel you show when no one with a clipboard is watching. Jamal clicked the remote, and still images from the security footage appeared on the screen. The moments were clear, even without sound. This wasn't a one-time mistake, Elijah continued. It was muscle memory and instinct rooted in assumptions, and if it happened to me, it could happen to any guest who doesn't look the part. Mr. Langley stepped in. As of this morning, Ms. Whitaker is on indefinite suspension. Security is being rotated out for retraining. Chloe is on probation. All staff will undergo bias, diversity, and sensitivity training. Elijah raised a hand. No one is being punished for asking questions. You're being held accountable for how you ask them, and why. He turned to the intern. You recorded what happened. Not for attention, but for truth. That's integrity. You'll work directly with my office on guest experience auditing, if you accept. The intern nodded, stunned. Gloria cleared her throat. I've worked here since the doors opened. I've seen staff come and go, good people get tired, and tired people get careless. But last night, I saw something else. I saw you stand your ground without raising your voice. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud to wear this uniform. The room was silent, but it wasn't empty. Jamal added, This isn't just a reset. It's a reckoning. From this point on, every employee across Halcyon Holdings will be reminded, your bias is your liability. Elijah looked around the room. Some heads were bowed, some lifted. Some looked away, but all were listening. I didn't come here to fire people, he said. I came here to find out if the culture we built had roots. Turns out some of it still needs watering. He stepped back. Mr. Langley stepped forward. Mandatory debriefings start at noon. Training sessions begin at 2. This hotel will operate, but it will not operate unchanged. Elijah left the room without fanfare. No applause, no final speech. He didn't need it. As he passed the front desk, Chloe stood with her head down, but straighter than before. The intern followed, shoulders set, grip firm on his phone. Gloria continued cleaning, but she smiled. And for the first time that day, Elijah did too. He walked to the board near the elevator, usually reserved for schedules and memos. He pinned a single sheet of ivory paper to it. No heading, no corporate letterhead, just 12 words, centered and clean. Don't just train them to serve. Teach them to see people. No one saw him place it. That wasn't the point. He stepped back, stared at it for a moment, then turned and walked toward the cafe. The morning crowd was filtering in, business travelers on laptops, couples whispering over pastries, staff preparing trays in the back. He passed them, without disruption, without hurry. He wasn't checking anything now. He was absorbed. And as the city of Seattle blinked awake beneath the pale morning light, Elijah Carter knew that something had shifted, not just in the hotel, but in every person who had witnessed the night the masks came off. And the truth stood tall in sneakers and a windbreaker, refusing to be unseen.